Now I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Dorit Donoviel, and she can pronounce her name properly for me in a second. But I just love Dorit Donoviel. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it, Dorit? How do you say your name?
Dorit.
Okay, yeah. But I like Dorit Donoviel. Okay, good. So Dorit has one of the most interesting jobs I know. She is at Baylor College of Medicine and leads a major grant program provided by the U.S. government to study wellness issues in space. So what will it be like for human beings or other beings to exist in space? What are the issues we'll face, and what do we do about it? Dorit, would you join me on stage?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Sure, not at all. So tell us, first of all, what is this thing you're doing, and what's the mission?
Yeah, so I get to spend your tax dollars. Thank you all very much. So we're funded by NASA, the Human Research Program out of Johnson Space Center, and we're based in Houston. And essentially, as you all know, NASA is very well known for its engineering capabilities, but when it comes to the humans, many of our rocket scientists think of the humans as the pink squishy things on top of the rocket. And they don't fit into a spreadsheet, and those billions of microorganisms that are on our bodies that complicate us, et cetera. So my job is to take your tax dollars that were given to Baylor College of Medicine in a form of a very large award. It's $246 million over 12 years. And what we do is we make grants to companies, to universities, to other government agencies. And the mission is we're going to keep humans healthy and thriving, not just healthy and surviving, but thriving in space for deep space missions. So spaceflight has become really routine. I mean, how many of you actually know that we have at all times, all the time, orbiting around the Earth, 6 human beings living up there and working 24/7? Anybody here not know that? Everybody knows that? A lot of people don't even know. It's become routine. We've had humans living up there for quite a long time, and it's quite an amazing feat. But what we haven't done is have humans live for long periods of time in deep space, and that's what Naveen was talking about. The moon is considered deep space. So when he talks about low Earth orbit, that's around our Earth, that's still within the protection of our atmosphere, which keeps those astronauts from getting zapped by a lot of space radiation.
So Dorit, let's go back. We'll come back to these issues
Sorry, I
and
can
challenges.
just go on and on and
No,
on.
no, no. This is why we're here to listen. But let's go back a little bit. How'd you get into this? I mean, it's not like you were in medical school and I think I'm going to study wellness in space. What happened?
Yeah, so you called it synchronicity? Yeah. That's what it was. I just happened to be at a breakfast meeting and met somebody, and that's how things happened. Yeah.
Really? What did they say to you exactly?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been a biologist for a long time, and I love studying human beings and microbes and the cells and how we tick. I think we're fascinating. We're amazing creations. We're vessels for these microbes to walk around. I love that concept. I watched Star Trek, I admit. I had a crush on Mr. Spock. That's Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock.
So you agree that Star Trek is better than Star
Absolutely.
Wars? Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
But no, it just kind of fall into it. What is this thing about space? And so it's difficult for people to connect the dots between space and health. But as humans, whether we're in space or Antarctica or in Africa or in your home, we still have similar health issues. And so it's about the human being adapting to a novel environment.
So building on that, if you had to articulate, say, one or two of the key challenges that maybe might not be obvious to us. Obviously, most of us know we need oxygen to exist, so let's set that aside. But what are a couple of the key wellness issues that humans might face in deep space?
Yeah, so everybody always thinks it's the microgravity, but it actually isn't. I think we've shown quite well now with Scott Kelly spending a year in space, and Russians have been spending long-duration space flight for quite a long time.
That might explain a few things.
Yeah, it could. They do take booze up there.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, but microgravity, we appear to adapt quite well to it. So as long as you exercise and load your bones and muscles and your heart, we can live in microgravity for quite a long time. What we haven't figured out, and this will probably be very, very surprising to most of you, is actually the confinement, the behavioral health issues keep most people at the Human Research Program and me up at night, more so than the concerns about radiation, which is interesting.
You mean confinement, being in a small space for an extended period of time, or being alone? I mean,
Yeah.
usually there are at least a couple of individuals in these modules, correct?
Right. So imagine being in a tin can that is approximately the size of a couple of Winnebagos, with 3 other folks that your boss selected for you as your crewmates. Your communication with Earth, your loved ones, can be up to 40 minutes delay cumulative. So you say hi, 20 minutes later your wife hears you. And 20 minutes later, her hello, darling, you hear back.
That sounds pretty good for some relationships, actually.
Yeah, I guess it would, but you do know people are listening, so. But I mean, you think about it right now, even with your texting, you expect instant communication. So we don't know how humans will do without a chance of coming back unless, you complete the mission. In other words, once you're on your way to Mars, you can't turn around, you can't abort. And there's no resupply. So right now in the space station, they can pick up the satellite phone and call anybody they want, anytime. They look at the cupula and they take photographs of the Earth. They get internet feeds on a daily basis. They're able to communicate with almost instantaneously with ground control. And so they feel that connection to Earth. And they all say how gazing down at the Earth is really what keeps them going, how beautiful the Earth is. On the way to Mars, they're not even going to have a view. They're talking about not even putting a window on the spaceship, because when you put a window up, you have more exposure to radiation. So imagine going to Mars and not even be able to look out the window and see it.
So, Dorit, not at all minimizing the connection between our cognitive and other living systems. It sounds like many of the most significant issues you're thinking about are mental, emotional issues that we'd face in these environments. Relatively few physical issues.
Yeah, so there are physical changes that we're worried about, of course. Like, for example, astronauts are prone to kidney stones. Anybody here had a kidney stone?
You don't have to share that. That was.
I know it was protected medical information, but those who had it know how painful that is. Well, astronauts are prone to kidney stones because of lack of gravity. Bones are constantly breaking down and releasing calcium, et cetera. And imagine getting a kidney stone on the way to Mars, and you can't have a surgical intervention. And if the kidney stone's really large where it's blocking urine flow, you can have a serious problem and die. So we are worried about those things, and we're developing capabilities of what we call self-care. So if, on the way to Mars, we will probably have one physician. It'll probably be an ER-trained doc who are used to thinking on their feet. But it's very likely that perhaps the ER doc will get sick. And now you've got a geologist trying to do a procedure. So that is something that we're worried about, especially if you have communication delays. How does a geologist provide health care far away from Earth? And that's a real scenario. So when we're thinking about providing self-care capabilities, it's not unlike what's happening in healthcare here today, where we're moving towards less invasive procedures, more in-the-home kind of care.
So we didn't talk about this in advance, so this is a little unfair. But what I want to do is bounce a little bit of AI or VR off against how your team is thinking about the future of wellness in space. Because some of the things you're talking about, for instance, with self-care, if we have increasingly capable AI systems to do things like diagnoses or monitoring. Yeah. We'll hear from Andreas Kadoff later this week, who's got a great health monitoring company in Switzerland. And if we can engage things like virtual reality to deal with social, emotional, connective issues, how are you and the researchers, is there work trying to bounce these foresight issues against these issues of wellness in space?
Absolutely. So we have to have AI. We're not going to be able to look up WebMD. If what does this symptom look like? And we're actually funding quite a number of companies in the AI world. And so absolutely we're going to have that. The problem that we hear, though, is that you do have to develop trust between the AI and the human, and it has to be seamless. In other words, the human shouldn't be the slave of the AI. The AI needs to be integrated into the workflow in such a way that the human can trust it. So that is something that we're working on in terms of what we call a mixed team of we're all using AI right now on our phones. It's an integral part of our lives. It's seamless. So that's what we're looking for in terms of healthcare and space.
What do you mean by trust in AI? What does that mean?
Well, right now you do your Google search, right? Like I have this symptom, you do a Google search. You trust Google to tell you what your symptom is, right? So why do you trust it? How do you know the algorithm is good? So I think astronauts are, especially when it comes to life and death, are going to have to be empowered with something that they feel comfortable on the way to Mars. I think there needs to be some data to show that they should trust this AI.
So how far along are any of the experiments that you've been investing in? Are we seeing any results yet from some of them, or is it still too early?
I think the healthcare world in particular is extremely conservative. And they should be.
Yeah, I mean, how many of you want an innovative surgeon? Anybody innovative surgeon?
Naveen Jain doing your knee surgery, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want innovation in some way, but I think within the next 10 years there's going to be some major breakthroughs. And in particular, machine learnings, where you don't have to constantly feed it a lot of data. It can actually learn from a small set of data and become better. I'm very excited about some of those developments. And if any of you have ideas, please let me know, because we're always looking for new avenues. But I want to come back to the microbes. So that was a very passionate speech. But he's right. I'm telling you this as a biologist and a scientist. I'm investing in the microbiome for astronauts. And we've even talking about banking the astronauts' microbiome before they go, because you get exposed to microorganisms when you interact with dirt, soil, the foods that you eat. Think about it. On the way to Mars for 30 months, they're going to be eating out of sterilized packs of food that all the microbes are dead, because otherwise the food will spoil.
Dorit, would there be value in banking our gut biome? We're not going to space. Is there a value?
Yeah, I would do it.
And then sometime in the future something happens. How
Yes.
does that look? What's the value
Yes,
there?
I would do it. Absolutely. I would bank my own microbiome now that have any of you read the recent stories about when you take antibiotics and then you take probiotics afterwards? It's actually worse, because those probiotics that you're taking are foreign to your body. They're competing with your natural flora. So it's worse for people who take probiotics. What you should be doing if you're about to take antibiotics is bank your own microbiome. Okay, it gets kind of disgusting, but you know.
We're all friends here, Dorit. Just go for it.
You talked about the yellow, okay, no. But I mean, there's a way to, you don't actually eat poop, but.
Really? Could you explain?
I can't believe we're going here. Anyway, no, but you're absolutely right. And it is amazing when you read the literature that you can transfer autism with just the bacteria to another person. You can transfer Parkinson's. You can transfer Alzheimer's. You can transfer resistance or susceptibility to a cancer drug. It is amazing what these microbes are doing. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off on.
No, that's fine. Having to do with banking. So, do you know of any companies that are already embarking on that?
There are some companies, you probably know better than I do, all the companies that are banking microbiome from people's patient samples. Particularly if you're going to have any kind of GI surgery, you should be banking your microbiome for sure.
So this sounds like a topic for Twin Global 2019. So we should circle back and talk about that. And I see one of those horrible venture capitalists over there, Lee Shapiro, our good friend and board member. We can maybe talk about some of these topics next year. So back to wellness in space. Look out 20 or 30 years. How does space touch us?
Yeah, so people are wondering, why are we doing this for the sake of six human beings, or 4, whatever human beings that go to Mars? It's not about that, right? It's about exploration. I mean, humans have always been explorers. You just heard from two people who just walked across Antarctica just because they needed to do it. I think that it's going to be more than just the civil servants who go. Obviously, there are people working in commercial space now that are going to make it much more affordable for regular people, not just the billionaires and the millionaires and the Hollywood stars, but regular people to actually go to space. And I think the moon will be the first place we go. And in fact, NASA is now saying we're going to go to the moon. We're going to do 30-day missions before we even think about going to Mars, and that's the right thing to do. So I think we're just at the beginning. We're going to be up there. Radiation is a concern, but I think that we're so resilient. And you're absolutely right, Naveen. There are organisms that have learned to adapt to the radiation effects, and the way they do that is that by increasing DNA repair. So all our cells all the time are getting bombarded by stressors and things that destroy our DNA, but we can fix them. So if you amp those up, and some organisms have learned to do that, we can make our cells more resilient, and that may even make us less susceptible to cancers, which is mutations in DNA.
So all three of the scientists you'll hear from tonight are in the middle of some really extraordinary things, and scientists and entrepreneurs, and they're quite optimistic, but they also have a very reflective side. What most concerns you about the next decade or two of our cast into space, about these issues? What most concerns you?
What concerns me is about our Earth, because when people talk about we need to go to space because we might not have an Earth, and yet we're destroying it ourselves every single day. So that's my take home. And NASA, has been studying Earth, has had some fabulous programs, which this administration at least has not been supportive of those Earth science programs. So I'm very concerned about that.
Great. So I asked this question earlier. 3 words to describe how you feel about the future, hyphens are acceptable. 3 words to describe how you feel about the future, hyphens are acceptable.
Promising, creative, and community.
Promising, creative, community. Hopefully we're building that right here with Twin. Thanks so much, Dorit. This is great.